Welcome to Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric, a show about the international teaching experience. Teaching internationally is one of the best decisions you can make as an educator. In this show, we will meet teachers and administrators from around the globe living and working internationally. Our hope is that their stories and experiences will inspire you to explore the world of education. We will learn about all aspects of international teaching, from becoming an international teacher to what countries are the best fit for you, to the challenges of being away from your home country. Come take this unforgettable journey to the world of international schools with Global Take, presented by SchoolRubric. Do you want to become an international school principal? Welcome, everybody. Today, we are talking about becoming a principal in an international school. I'm excited for this edition of Global Take. Global Take is a school about the international teaching experience presented by SchoolRubric. I am your host, Ryan Sagare. I was an international teacher myself for over 10 years. I am the co-founder of the nonprofit organization SchoolRubric. Today, I am joined by principals from around the globe. Let's bring them into the room. Let's have the producer show everybody, and we're going to go around and meet everybody in just a moment. I am joined by Dr. Cristiana Jurgensen in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. I'm also joined by Ann Cox, Dr. Ann Cox in Lima, Peru, and Noah Bohnen in Jakarta, Indonesia. Let's do some introductions and meet everybody. So have the producers roll that quick little prompt. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you live. Who are you? What do you do? We want to know. Let's start with you, Cristiana, in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks. It's so great to be here. My name is Cristiana Jurgensen. I'm one of the principals at Dhahran School. It's a middle school in sunny Saudi Arabia. And Eid Mubarak to all of our friends around the world who celebrate this holiday. We've been enjoying ourselves, having a nice little break from school for the last day or two. So I'm so glad to be here.
We are excited to have you on the show. Dr. Ann Cox in Lima, Peru. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am Ann Cox here at 4:30 in the morning in Lima, Peru. It's going to be sunny, not quite sunny yet. I am the middle school principal here. We have been in virtual mode for over a year. And beyond being in Peru, I have also worked in Rio de Janeiro, Spain, and Wisconsin. I'm delighted to be here. To see you again, Ryan.
I'm excited to have you both on, Cristiana and Ann, because I work with both of you in the wonderful city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And the one person I don't know in the room is Noah. So I want to learn a little bit about you, Noah. So give us a brief introduction.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me on the show. My name is Noah, and this is my first year serving as the principal for Jakarta Intercultural School, JIS. It's my 19th year overseas. Prior to this, I was serving as the middle school principal at the Anglo-American School of Moscow. And before that, I spent 10 years in South America in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And before that in Medellin, Colombia. And I'm originally from Canada. So it's my 23rd year in education, 19 years overseas, 7 years of principaling, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, you've got all of you have a wealth of international experience, and that's why we're excited to talk with all you about this exciting potential of becoming an international school principal. I do want to say to everybody that's watching live, I did see we have Charles Williams joining us live in the morning. He's a principal over there in Chicago. So welcome, Charles. I want to encourage also all of you to comment, if you have a question, drop it in the comment section. It doesn't matter where you're tuning in from. We will make sure that we have the producers show it on screen. Also, please share this out so we can continue to connect educators from around the globe. Let's get right into question number one about what's the difference between being a principal in North America and abroad. Can we roll that quick little prompt? Let's get right into it. Question number one, what are some of the differences between being a principal in North America and abroad? So we're going to start things off with you, Cristiana. I am very interested in how this question is going to be answered. Can you start us off?
Sure. I have a funny anecdote to tell about this. One time I was working in Salvador, Bahia in Brazil. And we were in the office doing, this, principal office stuff. And all of a sudden someone said, "There's a cat loose in the cafeteria." And, my one of my friends who was working as a principal, Dan Courtney, looked at me and I was like, "I guess it's our job." So as part of our job, we had to go and catch a cat. Because, it's South America, you don't call pest control, you just kind of take care of it and you figure it out yourself. So I think that's one of the, what I have found to be one of the biggest differences is that when you are a principal of an international school, the job description is much wider, right? It's whatever needs to be done, whether you're catching a cat. So the joke became, is this a cat catching situation? Whether you're catching a cat in the cafeteria, or whether you are, picking up people at the airport, or whether you're taking, perhaps I had to take a female employee to the doctor. So I think it's a broader definition of your job description. So not only do you have to be like a principal at a school with kids and parents, you also have to be, a friend, you have to be a driver, you have to be a cat catcher. So I think that is probably the main difference, is that it's not just what is in your job description on a piece of paper. It's whatever needs to be done, whether it's, I've had press conferences before. I've had to have a press conference before. I've had to, like I said, pick up people from the airport. We've had to evacuate people. So I think you have to go into it knowing that not only are you a principal, you're also part of a community, and you are a leader in that community, and whatever the community needs, that it's your job to step up and do it, and not be upset about it. Just be like, this is part of the gig and this is what I'm doing. I think for me, that was the biggest change, is that it's not just, the 9 to 5 or the 9 to 6 job. It's whenever people need you for whatever they need you.
Yeah, when you're saying cat catcher, I'm thinking about, I think, Anne, you were actually the principal when this happened, but in Rio de Janeiro, it was the monkeys that would get to that top room in the American school in Rio de Janeiro. So cat catcher, Anne, I'm going to come to you. What do you see as one of the big differences? Because I know you guys spent both time in both worlds. So I think you've got a really great perspective on this.
Well, first, I'd second everything that Cristiana said. Absolutely. The definition is any principal anywhere in the world, the definition is pretty wide, and it just gets a lot wider, I would say, in an international school. One of the stark differences I found, I worked in a lot of the federal programs and the behind the scenes things in America. And so I was familiar with these federal laws and regulations, state laws, regulations, these things that you complain about constantly when you're in the US. However, when you leave all that behind and you go to a school abroad, you realize there's a certain stabilizing factor to all of that stuff. And so international schools are a little more susceptible to changes from the top, depending on who the head is. There can be times you want to talk about, I was in Rio at this time. It may not be the same now. The schools change a lot more internationally depending upon who the head is, because there isn't that firm, that you don't have these laws and regulations that act as a little bit of a stabilizing factor. So there can be a lot of change, up to and including some real instability. So school, if you hear, a great thing about a school, you have to say, but when was that? And who's there now?
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about in previous episodes about that sort of suitcase leadership, where somebody comes in and changes things, and how those international schools are rapidly changing. Noah, I want to get your perspective on this also.
Well, I think the first thing is I want to be transparent and say that I've never been a principal back in North America. So all of for the last 19 years, I've been overseas. But of course, I've got friends that are principals back in North America, and comparing stories. I think there's a lot that Cristiana said and Anna said that I really agree with. One piece that I think is actually really exciting is that you are so much more to your faculty. You are so much there for them as a caregiver, sometimes as a consultant, as a shoulder, sometimes just to vent to, which is a lot of responsibility. But again, I think it brings you a lot closer to your faculty than you would be if you were back home. To Anne's point, it's actually exciting as well, though, because you can enact a lot of change. Like when I wanted to do standards-based grading and reporting in Moscow, I did it, and it doesn't work like that when you're working in a larger school district where you can just, obviously do your due diligence and get people on board, but the change that can happen is a lot quicker. One other point I think is important is I think it's a lot more fun. A lot of the times when I talk to my colleagues back at home, there's a lot of drudgery, there's a lot of sadness. And while we do face challenges being overseas, we have a lot of fun with it. I mean, we're allowed to get into people's classrooms. We're allowed to really coach teachers. We go off, we recruit in exciting places. My experience has been that it's a lot more fun. So I think that's one bit for me. That's really relevant.
I see, Anne, you're raising your hand. You want to jump in?
I have to, because you are so right. And the example I'll give is the union. I was told, oh my gosh, don't go to Europe. The unions are, wow, you can't do a thing. I laughed for 4 years. The union was a pussycat compared to what we were dealing with in Wisconsin. It's just, you're right. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And there's also a lot more vacation involved. And you need it because it's so full on when you are in session.
Yeah, well, I really like that piece, Noah, you were talking about building those strong relationships with your staff. I know, speaking from the other perspective, it really is, you know, as a teacher internationally, I felt like that's part of the reason I'm in the room with Anne and Cristiana still, years after teaching in the same school with them. Those bonds really are tight within that school community. And I know, Cristiana, I remember how sad people were when you were leaving Rio de Janeiro. It's like, you can't be leaving us. Please don't go.
Yeah, it's a bigger, your job becomes bigger than just, in the classroom or in the hallways. And the other thing I think that made it so fun is that you can make decisions based on the kids. That sometimes your hands are tied in other places to do that. And so it's scary at first. You're like, wait, I'm making that decision. But then once your staff starts to trust you that you are using what is best for kids as your true north, and you get staff to believe that, and believe that this is who we are, then you can make amazing changes based on for the kids, right? It's not like because there's some, regulation 792 of this. It's more like, why is this the best for kids? Do kids need more recess? Do they need less recess? Do they need enrichment? You can come together as a staff and talk about that and then make that decision, which is something that I think that flexibility and that ability to really make decisions based on kids and what is best for kids, which is like what every educator dreams of, right? Is to not be have constraints in that way. So for me, that's super fun too. I really enjoyed it.
God, you guys are making
less discipline.
You guys,
yeah, true. True. Yeah, I have found them to be very good kids. No matter if I was in Nigeria or I was in Qatar or I was in Brazil or here in Saudi Arabia, they're generally just really great kids and really great parents. And so you aren't spending your time, necessarily doing the grind of discipline, which sometimes, can kind of wear you down in other schools. I totally agree. And less discipline, at least for me, my experience was that for sure.
And I know that's sort of the perception we have with principals in the US, right? It's like the principal deals with the discipline and those sorts of things. You guys are making me regret not ever being a principal here or abroad, which brings me to our next question. So I'm going to have the producers roll our next question. So let's throw that up there, producers. Question number 2. What did you feel was key to obtaining your first principal position abroad? Let's start with you, Anne. How do we become an international school principal?
Well, it doesn't say in the screen now, but we did talk about this. I'm Dr. Ann Cox, and you have Dr. Cristiana Jurgensen, and then you have Noah. And so that's part of the key right there, I think, is that as a woman, you have to be a bit of an overachiever to get into the international school market, is my observation. And so you had to accomplish something first. My school was identified as a school of excellence. You have to have a pretty deep resume, and then it also depends which school you're planning to go to. If you want to go to a stronger school, there's different tiers, different strength levels of schools. But I would say be prepared, have something that you're proud of. Just show off what you have, and also be unafraid to put it all out there.
Yeah, I think, you bring up a great point. One thing when you do look at leadership, I think kind of internationally, it does tend to be pretty white and male dominated. And I know it is, we were talking before we got on the show that the only ones that don't have the doctor in front of our names are Noah and myself. So I'm going to come to the other non-doctor, Noah. Let's have you what is your little keys to obtaining your first principalship?
Well, to be really frank, it was quite hard to get my first assistant principal job. I applied a lot. I put myself out there. I got 3 different certifications to prepare myself for my resume. I said yes to everything, like teacher leadership, any type of PD that was out there. I went for it. And then beyond that, I really tried to diversify. So I was originally a math teacher. I taught math and science and some PE, but I decided just to independently become a literacy expert. And so I did everything to do with Readers and Writers Workshop, Penny Kittle, Stevie Quate, anything that was out there. I really went after it because I knew that, it's very, very competitive out there, especially in international schools, to get a job at a top international school. There's usually only one school in every city that you would want to work at. And for that school to have a middle school principal's job open when you're looking for it, it's pretty challenging. And so for me, I think it's about perseverance, and I think it's about, being qualified. I think that there's a lot of people that apply for these jobs and they haven't bothered to get certifications. And I think that's an absolute must. But I think another thing is just realizing that whenever you're doing anything, especially internationally, you're only as good as your last 3 months. And so showing up every day with that attitude that every day is a job interview and being the best that you can, I think is a really important reminder.
Yeah, I like that as far as building up that resume. And Cristiana, well, one of the
things, and this wasn't the case when I started, but now as we hire, because I'm obviously part of the hiring committee to hire other principals, and we actually check social media. And so your social media can really help you or really hurt you. So, having, a professional presence, not only like just not scandalous, but actually professional in terms of like your views on education or your views on diversity and inclusion, that kind of stuff really helps. We look at that, we check it, and we actually ask, the people we're interviewing for their social media accounts. And because then it's not just like what they posted about yesterday, but it's like, what have their retweets been for the last, 6 months? So you kind of get an idea of their philosophy about education and, or their philosophy about living internationally, or are they, do they notice what's happening on the world around them? So that was, obviously I got into this business in 2000. So I don't even think I had a cell phone. So it was much different. And we had this old book that you would used to look at, this like ISS, like printed book that you'd have to like go the pages and read. So now it's not like that as much anymore, but we definitely check social media when we're looking to hire. And again, it's not just to discount people, but really to understand who they are as an educator and their philosophy on things. So that would be like a really, concrete suggestion is, if this is something you're interested in, start following, on Twitter, other, SchoolRubric, for example, or, Socrates head of schools, like start following the people who are in education, who do international education, webinars and that kind of stuff. And then it'll make your presence greater online too. That would be another suggestion I had.
I love these suggestions. I know we're trying to get Ann in the room. This is part of, being abroad. The internet bandwidth always isn't the greatest, but we do have a question from the audience that is sort of related to this. So I'm going to have the producers, can we drop that question in there? Would you recommend an administrator with no international experience to pursue an administrator role abroad, or to first go back into the classroom abroad? I think that's a really great question from Charles. And I know, Charles, we've had lots of discussions about you going international. Who wants to take that question on?
I don't mind starting.
Go ahead, Noah.
So when I've hired assistant principals in the past, really what I'm looking for is someone who is different than me. You know, like not looking to hire myself. I'm looking to hire somebody that's going to bring diversity to the role, be it gender, be it subject area, be it experiences. And so I think that it all depends on what type of educator you are. I think that one nice thing about being an administrator back at home is it's easier to get an administration job in North America. There's a lot of schools and school districts. There's a lot more principal jobs that are available. And so if you can get that experience and you've been a teacher overseas, I think that you're just as capable. It all depends on your attitude when you interview. I mean, the fact of the matter is that depending on where you are, sometimes your experience back in the States can be very, very translatable or transferable, if you will. But sometimes if you're in a bit more of a challenging place and you've never been overseas before, it's a little bit harder to see that person into an administration role if they've never had any international experience.
Well, Anne, welcome back. You missed some great pointers from Noah about getting international. We're going to go to Cristiana. We're glad to have you back. We know internet speeds aren't always the best for we're tuning in from. Cristiana, do you want to tackle this for us?
Yeah, I think it depends on the school. Like Noah said, some schools are much more open to hiring an international administrator who doesn't have international experience. I think some schools don't necessarily want to do that as much. We do actually, because we feel like people who come right from the United States, they know a lot of the trends that are happening in the United States that sometimes international schools don't necessarily keep up on quite as much. So we do hire. We actually just hired one last year. So, and then they bring really exciting things that are happening in the United States to us. So I think it depends on the school too. So I think it would be interesting if you're interested in a certain area of the world, part of the world, or a certain school, to find out if they do that. Like, do they hire administrators straight from America or North America or Canada or wherever you're coming from, or do they want you to have some international experience? So it depends on the school too, I think.
Great pointers. And Charles, I'm telling you, you got to go international. We're going to go right into our question number 3. So I'm going to have the producers put that on the screen for us, and let's do it. Question number 3. What are some competencies that are helpful for being a successful principal abroad? We're going to start with you on this one, Cristiana. What are some competencies for being a successful principal?
Flexible, obviously. You have to be flexible. Things are never what you think they're going to be, ever, ever, ever. I think you have to be a doer. Sometimes, perhaps in North America, the administrator is more of like sitting in the office, maybe like doing some paperwork and stuff. I have found that in international jobs, it's not that. You're like walking outside of your office, and you're going into that classroom, and you're maybe having to do stuff that you didn't think you were going to have to do. So you have to be okay with that. So I would say a flexible, a doer, and then someone who is a good communicator, because sometimes you're communicating with people who English is not their first language. And so you have to be really open to trying to seeking to understand what they're trying to tell you. Parents or people at the school or government, agencies that come to the school for an inspection, so I think, being able to listen well and seek to understand and be okay with not knowing, I don't know how to do this. We're going to figure this out. So those would be, I think, for me, the most important. What do you think, Anne?
Yeah, you have to be everything that you said, Cristiana. We know, because we were like sharing offices, and and you were just such a great. I'm just so glad I ran into you at that time in my career too. And one thing you taught me was that, because that was my first position outside of the U.S., and that critical importance of relationships. Yeah. And you have to, your problems define you. And so how are you going to address those issues? And are you? I mean, sometimes you have to just let things go for the sake of the relationship. If you're the newest person in the community, you do not want to jeopardize everything because you have to fix this one problem and you're having a little anal moment. No, you got to go with it. You have to be all in for the success of the school. And that means putting your own ego aside and really understanding what is the culture here. In the bigger sense of the culture. You know, if you're in Brazil, I mean, you have to be ready to go to a business meeting and not even talk anything to do with what you wanted to talk about for up to 2 hours, and maybe even that whole first meeting. You don't even get to what you want to talk about. You have to understand these things or you are not going to survive. And by the way, also 2 hours late, at least. So being strength-based, really understanding. I remember when Cristiana sat me down and she's like, you have this piece, I have this piece. Let's work together. Let's teach each other. And so always understanding what is the strength this person brings. How can we learn together? How, you know, and you're not focusing on weaknesses. You're focusing on building, on strengths, what's happening. And so it's exciting. It's super energizing.
Yeah, I can tell it's super energy. And we got a great comment from Yanela who's like, these tips are gold. Noah, what can you add to this? I mean, there's so many great little tips.
I think my colleagues knocked it out of the park on this one. Their points on communication, their points on resilience, on flexibility, I think they could not be more true than they are. I think the only thing that I would add to that is there's a lot more in the job. So being flexible, having good HR skills, being good at interviewing people, documenting and whatnot. And I think as well, I don't know if this is actually a core competency, but I think it's really essential, is that demonstrating of really caring about kids. I think it is vital for overseas principals to be able to connect actively with kids, to be able to work with kids, and really keep kids at their focal point. And I didn't mention this before, but when we were talking about getting your first principal's job, it's so interesting how often you'll interview people for a teaching job or for an administrative job, and they don't talk about kids at all. I mean, you'll have a 45-minute interview with somebody and they won't mention kids. And so connecting with kids and really, really caring about kids in a healthy, genuine way is I think, an essential core competency to being an effective administrator as well. But again, to be totally transparent, all the good points my colleagues brought up.
I want to see an article about all of these important tips. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, those relationships, all about the kids. We do have one more question, but before we get to our next question, we're going to do a segment of School Rubric and Global Take called the School Spotlight. And today we are heading all the way to Lima, Peru, to tell the story of Colegio Roosevelt. Producers, let's roll that intro for School Spotlight. It's time for School Spotlight on Global Take, presented by School Rubric. Let's learn more about the stories and information from schools around the world. What's your school story?
It is such an amazing time to be here at Colegio Roosevelt in Lima, Peru. Despite being in the middle of the pandemic and never having seen my students on my campus, the vibrant, intense, collaborative community and the power of that community is evident every day in our work. Can you start the... So we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. One way or another, we're going to do it. I have no idea what that's going to look like. We're planning multiple scenarios, which is what we do these days in a very natural way. Our enrollment is 1610. We lost 10% in the pandemic, but we hope to grow back. And we have 43 different nationalities. 8 different nationalities among our teachers, very high representation from North America. 211 teachers and TAs on our gigantic, beautiful campus, bigger than most college campuses in the US. It's 23 acres. We have 3 full-size athletic fields, an Olympic-sized pool, just amazing facilities, 3 different libraries. It is truly an incredible campus. And FDR lives its mission and core values day in, day out, everybody knows about the passion for learning, the lives of integrity, and socially sustainable solutions. This is our simple mission, and we lean into it every day. We have a number of core values, and I want to highlight one that I think makes us, it's our hallmark. It makes us uniquely international. If you could cue the choice empowers core value. And the sound, please. I don't think the sound is coming with us, so I can talk us through this a little bit. This is sharing some of the things that we've been able to accomplish in and out of distance learning. We've been able to continue everything that we have wanted to do: concerts, talent shows, school plays, in distance learning, just as really as effectively, in some cases even more effectively. We're very, very proud of our distance learning program. Nonetheless, we can't wait till we can be back on campus, don't get me wrong. So our school is a vibrant school. We have weeks where we have classrooms without walls. That's one of the things that are pictured here. And we have three vast libraries, very interactive, student-based education. Our kids are happy. Our staff is happy. They collaborate together in a warm environment, and the kids look to the staff, and it's a very special relationship unique to this school. And life in Peru. Peru is mind-blowingly amazing. So first of all, you'll probably recognize the ceviche, and that's just how it's delivered. I probably have had that 100 times already. Just wanted to highlight a couple things. Rainbow Mountain, amazing, just outside of Cusco. It looks just like that. Of course, there's Machu Picchu. There are so many World Heritage Sites in Peru. It is just astounding. And I want to mention two further things. The people are just so warm, so wonderful. It's just such a welcoming place to be. And in the bottom right-hand corner, potatoes. Guess how many varieties of potatoes there are in Peru? Pop it in the chat. If you even get within 1,000, I'll be amazed. 4,000 varieties of potatoes. So this is the place you want to be if you love potatoes. Fun fact. And this is my staff. This is just the middle school staff. Of course, we have over 200 staff school-wide, but we have not been able to meet. I joined our school mid-pandemic, and so this is our Bitmoji. Every year we take a photo. This is our photo this year. And we've been delighted with all the ways that we've been able to be together, to maintain that strength. I've never felt more part of a community, and it's astounding because I've not met my whole staff. But that's the beauty of Colegio Roosevelt. It is an incredibly strong school, very deep college acceptance, over 150 colleges, including Ivy League, most of them North American universities in England and abroad. It is a very special, powerful school, and I am absolutely honored to be here.
Thank you for traveling across the globe with us to learn more about international schools. To hear more from international educators and learn more about these fantastic institutions, tune in to our live Global Take episodes as we highlight international schools in our School Spotlight section presented by SchoolRubric. Get me to Peru right now. I just love all the colors. It looks amazing. And I see your social media accounts and see what you're doing. The campus, when it was panning across there, I was like, this is like this tropical university paradise. We did have a guest from Matt who said 8,000. So he was guessing high and he did pretty good. Like Yanela was like, wow. And that was my feeling totally as I was watching you discuss your school. We do have one more question that we want to get to. So I'm going to have the producers throw up our last questions, and then we're going to close things out. So producers, would you throw up our last question of today's panel? Question number 4 what advice would you share with your younger self prior to stepping into your first principalship abroad? So I want to keep it short-winded here so we can go around the room. We're going to start with you, Noah. What advice do you have for your younger self? Gosh, I have a lot of advice for myself.
Yeah, there's a pretty long list. I think being flexible is at the top of it. But I have to say that, one of the things about the job is for the first while when you're doing it, you feel like an actor playing a principal in a play or in a TV show, and you like say what you think the principal's supposed to say, and you do what you think the principal's supposed to do. But if you stay true to what you believe in, if you stay true to the idea that all kids can learn and that all kids could have that opportunity and that teachers can grow and schools can grow and creating a supportive environment, then you fall into place pretty quick. But you're all going to go through that phase where, and I think that'd be my advice, is that when you start a new school, when you start a new job, moving from vice principal to principal, whatever that might be, you're going to feel a bit like an actor in a sitcom playing a principal, but you'll sort it out soon enough.
I love how you're constantly bringing it back to the kids. And I know as a teacher, I always look to that from the principals and the leadership of the school. So I really do appreciate that you keep bringing up the kids. And we're going to go to you, and then we'll go to you to wrap things up, Cristiana.
Yeah, that is the key, to keep it a sitcom and definitely veer it away from, the tearjerker drama or the, action adventure. Keep it the sitcom. It is true. You're stepping into a role every day, so you have to be ready for that. And I'd say, as far as your first position, what advice I would have for myself is be choosy. Ask so many questions. What I didn't realize is the international community is so connected. It's like its own little district. And so asking around and learning about, people will tell you. They are so willing to help. I could contact Cristiana any day of the week. And, what's happening over here? Do you know? Oh, no, but I know someone who's over there. And just find out so that you can land with some legs under you and be ready to roll that sitcom.
I love that. Right. That community is so important for support. Cristiana, let's close things out with this question.
Invest in relationships. Just invest in relationships from day one, from the second you start this process until you land there, to you meet your staff, to you meet your parents. Invest in the relationships. In the end, that's what's really going to make you or break you, is how you invest in the relationships with parents, with kids, and with teachers, and with government agencies, depending on where you are.
Oh,
that's a great way to sort of close things out here by building those relationships, which also brings me to my next topic of discussion, which is our Facebook group, which is a great way to connect with educators from around the globe. It's a great way to connect with people everywhere, principals, directors, other international teachers. And, like Ann said, and like, we've heard throughout the day, is that international community loves to help each other out. And so don't be afraid to go there and reach out if you have a question. It's a great group of people that'll help get that answered and support you. I also want to share with you what we're going to be doing next Thursday. We have another round of Global Take, early afternoon or night, depending on what country you're tuning in from. An overload of opportunities with Dave. He's a repeat guest, and now he's going to be hosting this panel. So we're excited for that. So I encourage you to see us next week. I also want you to encourage all of you to check out SchoolRubric.com for stories. We have podcasts. We have a magazine. We have a number of amazing things going on that help amplify the voices in education from around the globe. So thank you all. I've learned a lot. I'm pumped. I'm actually really disappointed that I'm not a school principal after talking with you all. You make it just, the passion is very evident in what you guys do. I can tell you love your job. So this has been so helpful. Thank you all. And that's it for Global Take. We will see you next Thursday. Bye. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content, such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you